What's good, Cheese Kingdom, and welcome back to the Water Boys channel as we are going to wrap up this exciting first round of this NFL draft, and we're going to go through the Kansas City Chiefs selections. But before we do dive in this, I do also want to apologize that I know I said I was going to go live and I kind of ran into some technical difficulties, but I did follow through. And if you guys want to catch me on Twitter on Friday and Saturday, I will be basically not recapping but going through every pick of every selections throughout the draft. So I will leave that handle tag up there. It'll be Waterboys. It'll be at Hydrate702. Please be sure to follow the Twitter and we can chat, discuss picks, and discuss what areas the Kansas City Chiefs can go. But let's discuss the picks that they invested with the Trent McDuffie and the George Karlaftis. Now, it's funny speaking on this because, like I said, this draft was so wild. And all of us, I want to say almost 99% of us thought that if KC is going to trade up in the draft, we thought with all the speculation going around and how crazy this was going to end up being was they're going to go for a wide receiver. And then Drake London ended up being your first wide receiver taken by Atlanta. And then it got surprising because then the Jets took Wilson and we're like, okay, that leaves Williams still on the board. We're getting to that 11, 12, 13 range where we thought KC could be prime candidates, and that's the Jameson Williams area. And then Chris Olave went ahead of Williams, which was also very surprising, and that's who the Saints traded up for. And then the Lions gave us our first heartbreak. Out of all teams, the Lions took Jameson Williams. And it honestly, I'm not here to speculate or anything like that, but he didn't even seem too eager to go to Detroit. But again, it's raw emotion, so you never know what it's about. But he was in that red suit. It just felt like it was destiny, and the Lions came in and swooped in and took him away. So at that point, we're thinking, does KC really trade up and do anything? Or do they trade up, like I mentioned in the past, like in that 20 range and go for an edge rusher or someone they might really like and invest in? Now the board started shifting in an interesting kind of way where we always mentioned one guy was going to fall. Well, that guy in this draft happened to be Jermaine Johnson. And KC happened to trade up in that area. They traded up with the New England Patriots. And everyone, Chiefs Kingdom, even myself, thought this would be the pick for Jermaine Johnson to go off. It didn't happen to go that way, unfortunately. But KC still got a solid cornerback in Trent McDuffie. And don't let it fool you either. Trent McDuffie also had a little slide too because we saw him projected anywhere as the Jets early 10 into that 15 range. He's a solid cornerback. I think it's a really good pick. I just don't think it's the sexy selection everyone hoped, because when KC trades up and Jermaine Johnson's still on the board, they're like, pull the trigger, get that guy. But also, sit back and look at how things play out and look at the Chiefs roster in depth. We know pass rush is a need, and a lot of people think it's the number one need. But if you look at it like thoroughly, like through thick and thin, cornerback might be your number one need at position, because after L'Jarius Sneed and Rashad Fenton, who might be a question mark to some people, I like Fenton as a cornerback, but the depth on the cornerback room is slim. It's like bare minimum. When you can look at your pass rush, even though they haven't proven themselves as of last year, you're still paying a guy like Frank Clark, who is production, who is also coming for a proven year to get $7 million, which is a huge motivation. And also Chris Jones too. You're paying wealthy money too to be a good pass rusher. If you just look at that hand in hand, I'm looking at cornerback being a bigger need, and I can see why they traded up for a Trent McDuffie. Definitely when McDuffie did slide into their laps. And also too, we're going to take another look at this too. Just look what happened afterwards in the draft. It looked like Buffalo wanted Trent McDuffie because shortly after, they went with Kaiir Elam. Now, not to say they didn't want Elam the whole time, but it makes sense they went with cornerback still, and it's also projected that in multiple mock drafts, Buffalo was wanting cornerbacks, and KC went and go to nab a better one. Now, I'm a huge Elam fan. I know a lot of people are. But I don't think it's up for debate unless you are really that huge of a fan. I think McDuffie's game is far more better than Elam's, even though I think Elam will succeed in this league. I just like what McDuffie did, and I didn't tend to talk about McDuffie a lot on this channel because I didn't think he would be there for Kansas City. And the fact KC traded up, and you could say they traded up a lot, but I don't view it in that way because they still kept their other first. They kept both of their seconds. They had to give up their 94th in a 4th round pick. But when you dive into day 2 and you're still dealing with your 2 second rounds and a 3rd and a 4th, you got ammo to move up for a wide receiver or anyone of your picking at that point. KC still controls the majority of the draft board, so it's a solid addition. And the last guy they drafted from Washington, was a great cornerback in Marcus Peters. You could say otherwise, but I beg to differ just because he has his personality traits. Marcus Peters is a baller at cornerback, and if the Washington University wants to be the next DBU, they also have Kyler Gordon, who's going to come out in this draft too, and then Trent McDuffie. I think Trent McDuffie is a day one starter on this team, and I think he will cover the perimeter and the outside. Unlike, you don't know if L'Jarius Sneed is a solidified perimeter guy. We know he excels in the slot. You know, Fane, he's played good on the outside, but he's all of our guys have mainly excelled in the slot. So you needed someone to take in and at least control one side of the field while you have another guy that can fit and do that, and you have Sneed in the slot, or however you want to mix it up. But I think this is a solid addition. KC fans, I know why you're bitter because you wanted Jermaine Johnson, but that's why we're going to dive into our next pick. And that's why you should never question what Brett Veach does, because to me, they had another slide to them in George Karlaftis. Now, we were seeing this happen in a lot of mocks, that he was sliding and he was going to be there, and that was just because that's how a lot of boards play out to be. But George Karlaftis is a fun, exciting pass rusher. Knows how to get after the quarterback, knows how to get a lot of tackles for loss, and knows how to go after anyone with the ball. A lot of big plays in the backfield to stop the running back. He's exciting. He had a solid career in Purdue. And also, too, if you look back, like, in the beginning of, like, this combine draft season and all that type of hype, George Karlaftis was being projected almost, like, as a top 10 pick. Same with Jermaine Johnson. It's just how this draft process goes throughout months. Players tend to slide. And Casey had a solid pass rusher fall in their lap. And now you look at it, it's like, if they bring back Melvin Ingram, which I hope they do because that's a veteran presence. But let's say they don't. You still got a Karlaftis. You got Chris Jones. And you got Frank Clark. Still can find pieces in the draft too. This was just day one. I think Karlaftis is a good solidified piece for the future. And he's also another day one starter. And also too, what a lot of people don't need to get twisted is both these guys are 21 years old. Their ceiling is so high. Like, they haven't even cracked the foundation yet. Like, they have so much to prove, and they've already proven a lot. And you know these guys were handpicked by Spags. Definitely someone like a McDuffie. He mentioned his game can be as similar to Matthew, and I found it crazy at first. But then when you watch his highlights, for a cornerback, he's everywhere. And one, he's a very solid tackler, a hard-hitting tackler. I've seen a couple sacks. He's always in the backfield chasing running backs. It's an interesting thing to see a cornerback like that. I don't think Casey will play him like that. But again, Spags likes to play his cornerbacks in any position. So I wouldn't be too shocked with it. And then Karlaftis, you get another solidified end and also an end for the future too, because you don't know what the lights of a Frank Clark's going to be in the future, or a Chris Jones, whether you're going to have to do away with them next year, or if their production is good enough. We know Chris Jones' contract is so heavy next year that I don't know if KC can bear that with no matter how well he does. So KC solidifying this line, I think two solid pieces in cornerback and defensive end pass rusher. I'm glad they went this route. I know a lot of people wanted the sexy pick, including myself and the Jameson Williams. But this is the route they needed to go because the defense needs to hold the lights of these AFC West teams as the Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders, because you don't know how crazy this is going to get. And you definitely didn't want to go out there with no cornerbacks and no pass rushers, because it's going to be a hard day for Mahomes to be putting up 45 points and we lose and another team scoring 50. Mahomes is going to get his weapons day two. Best believe that. I believe it. But Chiefs Kingdom, let me know how you're grading this draft. I'm giving it right now a solid A because they're addressing needs, and they had two players slide to them, even though they traded up for one, even though I don't think they lost too much value in that trade. I know PFF gradings might beg to differ, but when you got 12 picks and you don't have 12 needs, I think it's a good trade. But rate this draft so far for KC, and let's look in the future and what they can, like 50. They can go after wide receiver. There's still big names on the board like a Pickens, Tolbert, Sky Moore, Christian Watson. Like, I don't even know if they need to trade up. One of those guys might fall in their lap too. This is going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. If you thought day one was exciting with all these crazy trades, I just talked about Kansas City. We didn't talk about Hollywood Brown being traded, A.J. Brown being traded, all those trades to go get a wide receiver. Wide receiver is the big position of need because these guys are getting paid out. So teams are like, man, get these on their rookie deal and then deal with that later. But this is a fun day one. Day 2, day 3 is going to be exciting. Chiefs Kingdom, let me know who you're looking out for in these next couple of days in the draft, and rate this draft too and how you like how it's going. But before I do check out, please do subscribe to the channel. Please do like this video. I will be live tweeting throughout day 2 of the draft, so be sure to follow on Twitter, and we'll have fun and we'll chop it up. And with that, I'm checking out, and I'll check back with you guys tomorrow. Deuces.